It was supposed to be just another job interview. Marcus, a highly qualified candidate, walked into the office with confidence, eager to showcase his skills. But the moment the manager laid eyes on him, everything changed. The smile disappeared, the handshake never came, and suddenly, the position was already filled. Marcus knew exactly what was happening. He had faced this kind of rejection before, not because of his experience, but because of his skin color. But what the manager didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any applicant. He had a connection to this company that would shake the manager to his core. As Marcus calmly revealed his true identity, the color drained from the manager's face. His smug attitude turned to panic. The power dynamic had shifted, and in an instant he realized he had just made a huge mistake. But was it too late to fix it? The room fell silent. The manager, Mr. Reynolds, shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his forced confidence slipping away. I don't understand, he stammered, suddenly unsure of himself. Just moments ago, he had dismissed Marcus without a second thought, assuming he had all the power. But now, something was different. Marcus stayed calm, watching the man squirm. He had been through this before, but this time, he wasn't just another applicant. He had come here for a reason. Are you sure the position is filled? Marcus asked, his voice steady. Mr. Reynolds swallowed hard. Outside the office, employees worked at their desks, unaware of the storm brewing inside. Marcus glanced at a framed company photo on the wall, one that held a secret Mr. Reynolds had overlooked. The truth was about to come out, and the manager had no idea just how much his decision was about to cost him. Mr. Reynolds forced a laugh, trying to regain control. Look, I don't make the hiring decisions alone. It's just company policy. But his voice wavered, and Marcus could see the cracks forming. Marcus took a slow breath, choosing his words carefully. That's interesting, he said, glancing around the office, because I happen to know the owner personally. The manager's face twitched. The owner? He repeated, his hands gripping the desk. Marcus nodded, letting the weight of his words settle. He could see the panic rising in Mr. Reynolds' eyes. The man had judged him instantly, assuming he was just another applicant to be brushed aside. What he didn't realize was that Marcus wasn't here by chance. He was here for a reason. Meanwhile, outside the office, an employee named Sarah watched through the glass door. She had seen enough to know something was off, and she wasn't the only one paying attention. Mr. Reynolds' breath grew shallow. He shifted in his seat, eyes darting toward the door as if searching for an escape. You're joking, right? He stammered, forcing a weak smile. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his calm gaze never leaving the manager. Do I look like I'm joking? He asked, his voice low but firm. Outside, Sarah pretended to organize papers at the front desk, but she kept stealing glances through the glass. Something wasn't right. She had seen Mr. Reynolds brush off applicants before, but this felt different. The tension in the room was thick, and even from a distance, she could tell the manager was unraveling. Just then, a voice echoed down the hall. Someone important was approaching. Mr. Reynolds straightened, his face draining of color. He knew exactly who it was, and in that moment, he realized his mistake wasn't just a bad decision, it was about to cost him everything. The footsteps grew louder, steady, and deliberate. Mr. Reynolds sat frozen, his fingers gripping the edge of his desk. He already knew who was coming, and by the look on his face, so did Marcus. The office door swung open, and a tall man in a tailored suit stepped inside. His presence commanded attention, and for the first time, Marcus saw real fear in Mr. Reynolds' eyes. Marcus, the man said warmly, extending a hand. It's good to see you again. Mr. Reynolds' mouth fell open, his face now completely pale. He looked between the two men, his mind racing. The owner, the very person he claimed to represent, standing here, greeting the applicant he just dismissed as if they were longtime friends. Marcus shook the man's hand with a small smile. Good to see you too, he said. Then, turning back to Mr. Reynolds, he asked, So, About that job opening, still filled. Mr. Reynolds swallowed hard, his face now a shade lighter than before. He opened his mouth, struggling to find words, but nothing came out. The weight of his mistake pressed down on him like a heavy stone. The owner, Mr. Lawson, turned to Marcus with a knowing smile. "I take it you've had an interesting experience here today," he asked, his tone calm but firm. Marcus nodded. "You could say that," he replied, glancing back at the manager. "Apparently, I wasn't the right fit for the position." Mr. Lawson's expression darkened as he slowly turned toward Mr. Reynolds. "Is that so?" His voice was sharp now, carrying the authority of someone who demanded answers. Mr. Reynolds stammered, scrambling for an excuse, but before he could speak, Mr. Lawson dropped the final bombshell. "Marcus isn't here for an interview," he said. "He's here to take your job." The room fell silent. Mr. Reynolds' face drained of color completely. "The what?" he stuttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Lawson folded his arms. "I needed someone who truly understands leadership, respect, and fairness. Marcus has those qualities. You, on the other hand, have proven you don't." Marcus remained calm, watching as the reality of the situation sank in. Mr. Reynolds had assumed he had all the power, but now the tables had turned. Sarah, still watching from her desk, couldn't hide her smile. Justice had been served. Mr. Reynolds opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Lawson raised a hand. "You can collect your things," he said firmly. "Marcus, welcome aboard." As Marcus shook hands with his new boss, he took one last glance at Mr. Reynolds, who now looked smaller than ever. He had learned a hard lesson that day. Judging someone too quickly can have consequences you never see coming.